Howdy y'all, we're going to do some off-meta lists for Seraphon. So if you have some friends that are tired of our shooting lists, or tired of our Kroxigor lists, or they just want something more on their level, maybe there's some things. Seraphon is wide enough and deep enough that we can come up with some pretty interesting lists, I think. And so we're gonna do a couple videos on off-meta lists. I'm gonna look at a couple different ways to play Seraphon that are a little out of the ordinary. And we're not gonna do a bunch of skink spam. We're gonna look at some different things. Today we're gonna look at Kroxigor. Can we make a list that really focuses on Kroxigor? So I want to show up to the table, and I want them to see an army of Kroxigor, not an army of Seraphon. So let's see what we can do with that today. A quick overview of Kroxigor. I think they're better than a lot of people give them credit for. It's a pretty bad model that's fine cast. It's in desperate need of an update. Something to match the Total War Kroxigors would be awesome, because those things look beefy, they look scary. These fine cast ones, not so much. But their War Scroll, I think, is pretty good. I like it a lot. So they start off, they have an 8-inch move, which is pretty good for an elite infantry model. Something pretty big, getting an 8-inch move, not too shabby. They got 4 wounds each, 4 up save. I'm pretty much always going to take Kroxigor in Coalesced, so that they have a little bit better defense, because they'll be -1 to the damage on attacks that come into them. And they'll also get an extra jaw attack. And their jaw attack is pretty good. It can cause mortals. So they have the Drake Bite Maul, which is their standard weapon here. And it does have a 2-inch range, so they can fight 2 rows back. They're around 50 mils. And so you can fight in from the second rank of these guys, which is pretty nice. And their attacks are 4 attacks. 4s and 3s, -1 or in 2 damage. You can get that down to 3s and 3s if they're wholly within 6 inches of any skink keyworded unit. And so we got a lot of those. So that'll be pretty valuable for getting that extra +1 to hit. And what's nice is that's just automatic. As long as they're wholly within 6 inches of a skink unit, that's automatic. So I like these kind of buffs that you don't have to work too hard on, as long as they're within range of something. On their jaw attack, they each have 1. In Coalesce, they'll have 2. And if you roll a unmodified 6, it includes an extra mortal. So it's a mortal in addition to any other damage. They do have a special weapon, a Moonhammer, and that is really good at hitting hordes if they get into range of your Moonhammer. It's equal to the number of models within 2 inches of that model that has the Moonhammer. The base attack for the Drake Bite Maul is 4. I think it's gonna be an outside chance that you're gonna really get this into hordes. If it were me, I would probably run all with Drake Bite Mauls just for the consistency. I think if you're gonna hit a horde, you're gonna do so much damage with these guys anyway. The extra couple of attacks with that Moonhammer isn't gonna be that big a deal. So I would put them all as Drake Bite Mauls. And just to keep it easy, consistent, and especially if you're going up against just normal units, that 4 attacks is going to be valuable. So what kind of damage do they do? That's their War Scroll. They don't take a lot of buffs, really. They kind of stand alone. They don't have any keywords. If you look down there at their keywords, Order, Seraphon, and Kroxigor, they're only keywords. So they don't really take a whole lot of buffs, but that actually makes them pretty good, as they can kind of stand alone, and you don't have to work too hard on them. You can just let them be. Let them attack, let them chomp, let them eat. So what's their damage look like? I'm doing 6 Kroxigor in a unit, and if they're wholly within 6 inches of any skink unit, which I'm going to take some skinks just so that they're a good screen, you're looking at almost 20 damage versus a 4-up save. Now that's no other buffs other than being beside their screen unit. That's pretty awesome. These guys are pointed at 140 points for 3, so that's a 280 point block. That's pretty awesome. 20 damage with no buffs going into this thing is nice. For a comparison, I pulled up a comparison real quick. We've got Rotgut Troggoths. They're basically the same price. You got 6 of them. They're 140 for 3, so that's 280. Same price. They're doing 13 damage. So look at that. We're doing almost 20. And the Rock Guts, same point cost, same everything, are going with 13. So points for points, the Kroxigor are actually pretty good. I like them a lot. So here's my sample list for a Rock Gut, or not a Rock Gut, for a Kroxigor list. And I'll kind of run down why I chose this. This is definitely an off-meta list. I haven't seen anybody trying to run this yet. But we're putting it in Coalesced. We're not going into any of the sub-factions because I want to make sure and get my Engine of the Gods that I'm including here, some extra buffs here. But we are taking Lord Kroak, who is wonderfully pointed at 320. You'll see a lot of gnashing of teeth over his point cost. But as a Seraphon player, I'm fine with it. So he's 320. I'm taking Stellar Tempest just to kind of help deal with some hordes. That's one of his best spells, and you can always switch out if you need to. But my other hero, I'm taking Engine of the Gods, and I'm making him my general so I can get him the command trait Nimble, which gives him +1 to his save. And Artifact is the Sacred Stegodon Helm, which gives him also another +1 to his save. So that Engine of the Gods is going to be up on a 2-up. If he's in combat with something with 5 or less models, he'll be on a 1-up. So we've got both our heroes are pretty beefy here. They're pretty nice. Lord Kroak does have that extra 4-up after save, so we've got 2 good heroes. That Engine of the Gods will do amazing on its own, but also stick close by to Kroak to get some summons or to do some mortals at range. But I like an Engine of the Gods out on his own, especially with a 2-up or a 1-up save. He's going to be tanking quite a bit. My battle line, I'm taking 5 different units of skinks. Now, the reason I'm doing this is I want to make sure my Kroxigor are always within range of a skink keyworded unit to get their +1 to their hit. And so skinks are great. They're good for objective grabbing. They're good for harassing people for screens. But in this case, they're also there to buff my Kroxigor. The beef of this list is 4 different units of 6 Kroxigor each. Whew. Just seeing that there on paper, I love that. Just this is gonna. You're bringing a lot of beef to the table, which isn't normally what happens in Seraphon. You're bringing either, low model count monsters, or you're bringing a ton of tiny skinks. Which, I mean, granted, we still have 50 skinks here, but you've got a lot of beef in these Kroxigor. That's 165 wounds in this list, which I really like in a Seraphon list, especially in Coalesce. Normally, my Coalesce armies don't have that many wounds. And those Kroxigor can take a pounding, and they can also give it in return. So this is my list where I'm getting as many Kroxigor in there as I can, but while still keeping some heroes that are worthwhile and lots of skinks. So let's pop over and look at Tabletop Simulator. What does this look like on the table? All right, let me pull that up a second. There we go. Man, look at that. Look at that. Look at all those Kroxigor. That, once you see it kind of deployed, you realize, each one of these can put out 20 damage in each melee combat. And that's not even re-rolling ones. I mean, we're not even putting a ton of extra buffs in there, which you can buff these guys a little bit. You can give them re-roll hit rolls of 1 from any of the heroes, but that'll increase their damage a little bit. But man, look at that! So you can kind of see here where I deployed this army here. This is Battle for the Pass, I think, or Border Wars maybe. I'm kind of leaning heavy on this right side. I'm going to send this unit up to kind of tank that one. Hold this with my Engine of the Gods and Kroak. Send out his mortals. He's pretty much can't be hit in a deep strike here. He's got enough cushion on both sides. So I'm not too worried about screening him off. He's all the way at the back of the board. So unless something crazy, you should be okay from an alpha strike there. And then pushing these guys up. Hopefully summon in enough warriors in the back over the next few turns to help solidify your backfield. But you're going to be pushing at least 3 of these core units up into the middle of the battlefield to start taking some damage and start handing out some Drake Bite Maul attacks. So that's how I like it, man. I really just wanted to see what that would look like on the table. I personally don't have 24 Kroxigor. I don't know if anyone does. If you do have 24 Kroxigor, please post a picture. I want to see these guys on somebody's shelf or on the table. I'm hoping at some point they get a plastic model out there so that we can actually have a unit that looks as terrifying on the table as it is on the War Scroll. But I really like the Kroxigor. It's an off-meta list here, but I think it could work. I'm going to play around with some Kroxigor builds, and I'll let you know how it goes. I have one more that's maybe a little bit more traditional list. Let's take a look at that and see how it works with Kroxigor as well. All right, so my more traditional, probably more reasonable, this is more on meta probably list for Kroxigor would be to use the Thunderquake Temple Host. And this is going to go in Thunder Lizard sub-faction. And then we're going to use the Thunderquake Temple Host battalion. And this battalion is so versatile. It's so good. I like it a lot. In your hero phase, you can declare if everything in this battalion is going to be either swift or savage. So you can either run and still shoot and or charge in the same turn. Or if you flip it over to savage, you can add 1 to their attacks in melee. And so this battalion consists of an Engine of the Gods, which I really like, or Stegodon Chief, which is really good in melee if you're taking this with a bunch of Stegodons. 2 Bastiladons or Stegodons in any combination, and then 1 Kroxigor unit or hunting pack. But we're going to focus on Kroxigor units. And so if we're putting them in this list here, we've got Coalesced, which gives us +1 jaw attacks. Thunderquake Battalion, if we do Savage, it's going to give us another +1 attacks. If they're wholly within 6 inches of a Skink unit, they get that +1 to hit. And then let's just add on reroll hit rolls of 1 just to see. And now we're doing 30 damage versus a 4-up save. And the great thing about this is this isn't stuff that really relies on spells or prayer rolls. All these buffs are just, they're free, or they're positioning dependent or command point dependent, which command points in our army are pretty easy to come by. But all of them except that last one, there's no chance. As long as you position it right, you'll get that +1 to hit. The other 2 +1 attacks are all just native, as long as you choose it for the Thunderquake Battalion. So we're upping these guys' damage, and it's not difficult to do. So I like this. Here's my actual list with this. So we are taking 2 Bastiladons and an Engine of the Gods to fill out our Thunderquake Battalion, and I'm taking 2 6-man units of Kroxigor. One of them will be in the battalion. That's going to be my, the hard hitting one. It's gonna have more damage. It's also going to be a lot faster if I'm doing swift. But let's look at this list. We're doing Coalesced. It should be Thunder Lizard there. And what that allows us to do is I'm going to put a Slon Starmaster. And the reason I'm going to do him instead of Kroak is to get the extra points, but I like his command trait and artifacts. And if we're in Thunder Lizard and he's our general, we can get out of the old other command trait, which was Prime War Beast, which is good, but I'm trying to get out of that. And so, you know what, this list is this may be the wrong list on here, but we're going to talk through it anyway. I had the artifact for the Engine of the Gods wrong. So what we're doing here is, because we're in Thunder Lizard, we're gonna use it. We're gonna get out of the command trait, and we're gonna go into Star Master. Arcane Might gives him a 1 reroll of a spell or unbind or dispel in each hero phase, and then Itixi, whatever, however you say that, Grubs gives us another reroll. And so this Slon, he's gonna be +2 generally to his casting and unbinding, and he's gonna get to re-roll 2 of those in my hero phase and in your hero phase. And so this Slon is all of a sudden really powerful. I like this as an alternative to Kroak. He's not going to put out as much damage because he doesn't have that short range explosion of mortals, but he's going to be shutting down the other guy's spell casting. So my Engine of the Gods I'm including here. He's in the battalion. I have this list. Maybe this is just the list I built in Coalesce without a sub-faction.
If you don't do a sub-faction, you can just throw on Cloak of Feathers on him, makes him fast, -1 to hit. This guy will be pretty quick. You could even put the Skink Chief in here with Cloak of Feathers to make him even faster and flying and more of a melee hammer. If you do Thunder Lizard, you can do all the same stuff, but you'll just have to have a Fusel of Conflagration on him. I like Thunder Lizard on this one because if you have extra command points, you're going to be firing this or the Bastildons off as much as you can. My battle line, I'm taking 2 Sarsguards, and the only reason I'm taking those is to keep my Slann alive. He's a lot weaker than Kroak, and so by doing this, you're adding an extra 20 wounds to Slann effectively, as long as you roll 2-ups. And so it's going to make him a powerhouse there where he's going to be hard to kill. We got 2 units of Skinks. I'm gonna stick those right near my Kroxigor. They're going to hug those Kroxigor wherever the Kroxigor go to make sure that they keep that buff going. And then 2 Bastildons. If you're in Thunder Lizard, you can fire those guys off as much as you want, but also they can run and shoot, which is fun. And so that rounds out the Thunderquake Temple Host. So I think this is a little bit more traditional list where we're still fitting in 12 Kroxigor. So it's not quite as spammy as that, but maybe has a little bit more all-round play here with a total magic domination through that Slann with both those things, some summoning from the Engine of the Gods, and then some pretty decent shooting and tanks from the Bastildons. And then you've still got your output of 30 from one unit of Kroxigor and about 20 from the other one. So some melee power, some shooting power, and some magic phase. So this one's probably your more all-around list. But I don't see it. I haven't seen it at all, really. The Kroxigor aren't really run that often. If they are, you might have 3 of them just to fill out your Thunderquake. So there's my 2 lists. Which one do you like better? Do you like the Kroxigor spam list with 24 Kroxigor, or do you like the Engine or the Thunderquake Temple Host? Let me know in the comments below, which one do you like better? Which one do you think will perform better? Regardless of the answer, man, I really like this list. If they ever go Plastic Kroxigor, look for me to be running this one. All right, we'll see you guys.